Hi, I'm Terry, better known as Mr. White Keys, and I have some exciting news today. My Masunaga 100 frames have just arrived, so let's take a look at the unboxing video. My new Masunagas have arrived. There they are. Okay, let's take a look. So Masunaga is one of the oldest eyewear manufacturers in the world. They were founded in 1905 in Japan, in Fukui, Japan, in the north of Japan. And it's family owned and operated, led today by CEO Satoru Masunaga, who is the great-grandson of Gozaemon Masunaga, which was the original founder. They started the company with master craftsmen from Osaka and Tokyo. Today, they still make the best eyewear in the world. They're still handmade by master craftsmen using a proprietary 200-step process. They don't rush the process, nor do they take any shortcuts. They make acetate as well as titanium frames all in the same factory, so it's basically like a one-stop process. And this is a very expensive way to do things, but that's one of the philosophies of Masunaga, is that, they want to make a profit, but they're not afraid to take a loss in the pursuit of the perfection of the craft. Their production center is a one-stop shop. It includes all processes from raw materials to production and finish in a way that is perfectly integrated, resulting in the highest quality of detail and design. They do not outsource any of their work because the companies are unwilling or unable to meet their quality standards. Their production process is thus quite expensive and time-consuming, but they have a philosophy that prioritizes the pursuit of perfection and excellence in workmanship, even if it means taking a loss to maintain quality in the pursuit of master craftsmanship of the highest order. It's a concept that they call Monozukuri. Masunaga doesn't use acrylic or injection molding in their frames. Instead, they make their own acetate out of pulp and cotton reacted with acetic acid. This allows them to make frames from a variety of brilliant colors. In order to soften it, they use a plasticizer at about 23 to 26%. However, manufacturers of eyewear in Europe use a lot more plasticizer. One of the reasons is because it makes it softer, makes it easier to adjust, but it also picks up more water and is not as stable. So Japan is very humid, so Masunaga has chosen to use a lot less plasticizer in their acetate. Masunaga is the only manufacturer in the world that uses a series of special drying and stabilization steps in a process that takes several months. This helps remove internal stress from the acetate. This also makes the acetate much more stable over the course of decades, which is why their frames last so long. Masunaga also makes three-dimensional temples, which are more sculpted, balanced, and much more comfortable, while other manufacturers have two-dimensional temples that have like a uniform thickness. They use titanium cores in their temples that wear like a pair of comfy slippers. Inserting core wire into a temple is the most difficult part of the 200-step process. When you use titanium, it's a nightmare, which is much more expensive. It's also the reason why other manufacturers choose not to use titanium core in their temples. So the polishing process is a largely manual process, but involves taking the frames and putting them into a tumbler and letting them tumble for 20 hours with chips of bamboo and pumice. And once that's done, they pull them out, they wash it, they hand polish them, then they put them into another tumbler with finer and finer chips as they move from tumbler to tumbler in a process that can take several weeks. Following this, the frames are polished by hand using a series of spinning wheels, which is also the most time-consuming part of the whole 200-step process. This polishing process also hardens the frames and makes them more scratch-resistant, which is why the Masunaga frames last, again, for decades. Masunaga uses longer nose pads that are much more comfortable and help to distribute the weight of the frames more evenly. Let's talk about weight distribution in frames. So one of the reasons why when you take a Masunaga frame and you slide it on, it feels like it's not even there. These are literally the most comfortable frames you'll ever wear. Part of that has to do with the Japanese acetate. Part of that has to do with the polishing process. A lot of it has to do with the three-dimensional temples that they use, whereas other manufacturers use two-dimensional temples. Because the three-dimensional temples is a labor-intensive process that also requires you to have a separate mold for each of the three-dimensional shapes. And that's a lot of trouble to go to, and it's also a lot of expense. That's why other manufacturers don't do that. But one of the things that allows you to do then is it allows you to shape the temple in such a way that the weight of the temple is evenly distributed. So there's enough weight behind the ear, and then part of the weight is in front, so they don't feel like they're falling forward. They don't feel like they're slipping back, and it doesn't grab your head and actually make holes in your head like the last set of glasses that I've been wearing for years. So that's part of the explanation as to why these feel so luxurious. Now, the other thing too is that, when you look at the hinges on this, I don't know if you could see those hinges. It's a 7-barrel hinge. It makes these frames practically indestructible, right? Masunaga also uses longer nose pads, and that's part of what makes them more comfortable. It helps to distribute the weight more evenly. And then, of course, they also do a lot of different kinds of nose bridges, again, to add to the comfortable feel of these glasses. Now, in 1911, Masunaga won its first gold medal in the National Manufacturing Trade Exhibition. And in 1932, Masunaga received the Japan Manufacturer Association's Award for services to trade industries. In 1933, Masunaga was selected to make eyewear exclusively for the Japanese emperor. Now, at the time, the Japanese emperor was considered to be a living god among the people. So there were 2 master craftsmen that were chosen. And if they ever made a mistake, they would have to commit seppuku, which is ritual suicide. The CEO at the time was not permitted to enter the workplace at all of these 2 master craftsmen. They would perform a purification ceremony daily before starting their work, and they wore special white clothing. So today, the glasses that they made of solid gold and bamboo look the same as they did right after they made them. And it's so unusual to see a pair of glasses that has that kind of endurance. Most other eyewear would have corroded and degraded by now. These glasses are still intact and they look as beautiful as they did the day they were made. The first CEO was Gozaemon Masunaga, and he was the original founder. His original goal was to revitalize the village of Fukui, taking school children and making them apprentices, training them to be master craftsmen, making eyewear by hand. They would form teams of 1 master craftsman and 5 apprentices who worked as one team during the day. And then at night, he would teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic, as well as basic life skills, because, he was originally a teacher. These master craftsmen went on to open their own shops in Fukui, Japan, which today produces more than 97% of all of the eyewear produced in Japan, which are considered to be the best in the world. This helped place Japan on the map and establish it as one of the best manufacturers of eyewear in the world. Masunaga won the Silma d'Or Award in the Paris Eye Show 2013 for quality, design, and master craftsmanship, which they won again 3 more years in a row. They are the only company in the world that has the ability to perform direct welding infused gold onto titanium. All of the gold you see in their frames is real gold. Their metal frames are always made from titanium, and they include intricate hand-carved details and coining work in the rim wire, nose pads, and even on the temples. A lot of this labor-intensive artwork is added to places that are not visible to others, demonstrating their focus on quality and craftsmanship rather than showmanship. A lot of times we refer to this as quiet luxury. Rather than having a big name or some artwork emblazoned on the outside, it's something that the wearer knows is there, but is not something that's highly advertised or pretentious. Now, the most popular frame ever produced is the Masunaga 000 frame, and it's made from premium Japanese acetate, and that acetate is actually made at the factory. So they make everything from raw materials to finished product under the same roof. It was first produced in 1970, inspired by the custom 72 frame. The name 000 represents beginning, representing its foundational role in the Masunaga eyewear collection. The 000 was actually placed in a time capsule in Osaka, Japan at the World Fair. They feature distinctive silver rivets and inlaid lettering on the temples, as well as 7-barrel double riveted hinges that are virtually indestructible. These frames have a titanium core, which is stronger and lighter than stainless steel, and contributes to the frames being considerably lighter and more well-balanced than comparable frames from other manufacturers. The color number is also at the end of the temple, so I'll show you that. So here is the color number. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's very small. So that's where the color number is. So you'll also see some Japanese characters on the temple. Not sure if you can see that, but these characters mean ray of light. The Masunaga frames also feature a small parallelogram on the outside, which is how you know it's Masunaga. This is, again, in demonstration of that idea of quiet luxury, rather than emblazoning a large name on the side of the temple. Now, the Masunaga 100s, which are the frames that I have on, were released in 2023, and they were released to pay tribute to the Masunaga 000. They feature a slightly wider bridge, and the hinges are also made of gold. The words along the temple are also engraved in gold. These particular frames are called olive, so this is color 38. I'm sure olive probably isn't the first color that you would think of, because most of us think of olive as kind of a greenish color. But it occurred to me that maybe other people think of olives as the black olives that you eat, which is sort of like an off black color, right? And that's what I think these are. So the lenses in these are Trivex lenses, but I also got progressive lenses, and I used what they call the endless progressive lenses, which I really, really like. I also added an Italie brand tint to this. And so this is a 50% G15 blending to a 25% G15 at the bottom. And then the transitions that I added to these are Gen S graphite green, which is basically the G15 transition. And that turns them into full sunglasses when they're exposed to the sun. This is what we call a fashion tint or an indoor tint. I can see perfectly indoors, even at night. I tested this at night to see if there would be any issue with the tint. And it's not. It actually just takes the starburst and the flare out of any of the lights that I see and allows me to see more clearly even at night, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then indoors, it has the effect of, it softens the lights that are beaming down on you, right, when you're indoors, and especially if there's fluorescent lights around. So I really like that as well. G15 was originally introduced by U.S. Army Corps Colonel John A. McReady, who was engaged by Bausch and Lomb to create aviation sunglasses that would reduce the distraction for military pilots, to combat glare at high altitudes, and to reduce eye strain during flight. So let's take a look at how these look on. You see how these look on me now. I'm going to show you a couple of more photos. So here's how they look from the side, here's how they look from the front and from different angles. And here are some more angles. Okay, calm down, Terry. You're not Daniel Brunson. So once you step outside into direct sunlight, that's when the Gen S transitions begin to activate. And these are a G15 transition. So you can see then what these look like as they begin to activate in bright sunlight. Now, one of the disadvantages of the Gen S transitions is that they don't tend to work as well in hotter temperatures. And as I was taking these pictures, it was about 111 degrees outside. So they don't tend to get as dark in those kinds of temperatures. As the temperatures start to get cooler, the lenses can get a lot darker. The other thing about the Gen S transitions is that they don't darken behind a windshield, because the windshield blocks all of the UV rays. The reason to get the Gen S transitions is if you want the transition to be fast. That was a priority for me when I first started out looking at these, because the last time I had transitions was quite a long time ago, but it took almost 10-15 minutes for the glasses to go back to clear, during which time I had a whole lot of problem seeing things, you know, and I didn't want that to happen. So I got the Gen S. The Gen S goes back to clear in 1:25 seconds, and it starts to get clear right away. If you need transitions for hotter climates, you can get the extra active transitions. Those work well in hotter climates. They also activate to a category 2 sunglass, even behind the windshield. And they're not only reacting to ultraviolet light, but they're also reacting to infrared light. They're reacting to visible light as well. So let's talk about the transitions for a second. When exposed to light and going outdoors, these glasses darken. And when I say darken, I mean they will darken to a category 1 sunglass in about 2 seconds, a category 2 sunglass in about 7 seconds, and they will go to a full category 4 sunglass in about 25 seconds. Now, when you return indoors, it takes only about 1:25 seconds for them to return to perfectly clear. Masunaga Eyewear holds an iconic place in history. Robert Downey Jr. wore Masunaga GMS 106s during the premiere of Avengers Endgame. Emma Watson wore the Masunaga 000 on the UN Women event. Daniel Craig wore Masunaga Wink frames in James Bond Spectre. Lady Gaga wore Masunaga Regulus sunglasses at a charity event in New York. Masunaga eyewear is also preferred by dignitaries and royals around the world and are often seen at state dinners and public ceremonies due to its refined style and unmatched quality, representing a perfect blend of artistic tradition and innovative design, the pinnacle of optical excellence. From movie premieres to high-profile social events, Masunaga has earned its rightful home on the world stage. So that is the Masunaga 100, which was a tribute to the Masunaga 000. I'm going to put a link in here to a video that was made by Hicks Brunson Eyewear by Daniel Brunson. And he talks about the 000, and he also talks about the 100 and why it was made and that sort of thing. So that's interesting. I'll put a link up here for that. I did purchase these from Hicks Brunson Eyewear. I work with Becky Jo and Daniel Brunson at Hicks Brunson Eyewear. If you're looking for quality eyewear and custom work in terms of tinting, where you want a double gradient tint with a transition on top of that, a lot of times companies won't do that for you. But at Hicks Brunson Eyewear, they actually make the lenses in-house from the blanks, and they're able to do all sorts of things that other companies are not able to do. They're located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The level of customer service that you get is just unbelievable. I mean, I've had Becky Jo text images to me as we were kind of going through and looking some different things and looking at different types of tints and things like that. And she was helping kind of guide me along in that process. And just from start to finish, the level of attention that you get and the level of customer service is unmatched by any place I've ever worked with before. So shout out to Daniel Brunson and Becky Jo at Hicks Brunson Eyewear. They are just absolutely amazing. So the next set of eyewear that I'll be reviewing in the next video will be the T. Henry's Daytonas. And that is a very interesting piece. I got the blue ones, but you'll see that when I drop the next video. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next video.